you know, we're recording
Okay.
right this app. So you don't participate in something that's recorded. By sharing it's easier to share words. I prefer to record only the hearing. Yeah.
Just stand quiet. Yeah.
But everyone is being recorded. I've muted everybody and unmute those neighbors to speak hearing. That way, you're not on the record for anything you don't want to teach. My name is Wendy. I am the coordinator for industrial wastewater permitting for IDNR, and I've been doing this about 19 years. And today, we're doing a public meeting followed by a public hearing at 10:30. And with regards to an amendment, we proposed to an NPDES permit for IPL Ottumwa generating station. Since there are different folks on the call with different backgrounds, I'm going to start with just some quick background on what it is we do. So, NPDES, it's a terrible acronym, but it stands for National Discharges Elimination. These are our Clean Water Act authorized federal permits issued by the state that authorize the discharge of pollutants from a point source to water supply. And these permits limit the amounts and types of pollutants that a facility can discharge. They're reissued every 5 years to individual facilities, so we issue these by the site. And permits can be amended at any time during that 5-year term. That's what we're really talking about today, is proposed amendments. So amendment law in Iowa basically says if we want to amend a permit, we have to prepare a draft permit. We've done that. We went through 30 days of public notice to obtain written comments on the draft amendments, and we received one comment letter. And that comment letter requested a hearing, which by law requires another 30 days of notice of that hearing. In which case, in the hearing, we'll take all comments on that. So we're going through that part of the process now. The other part of the amendment law says that when an individual permit is amended, only those conditions to be amended shall be reopened when the new draft permit is prepared. All other aspects of the existing permit shall remain in effect for the duration of the permit. So we are only reopening a small portion of the Wisconsin permit. So what are we opening? We're working on the IPL, once again, the Ottumwa generating station. I want to be clear because we have maybe 2 different sites that we're going to talk about today. This is the power plant. Last year's renewal, we reissued the permit last summer. We had to base our limit calculations on estimated flows and very little information because one of the district points was new. And so we now obtained from the facility a year of actual effluent flow data, which we used to recalculate the limits to get them more accurate. And those limits are for current, or temperature, and the dilution ratio, what we call whole effluent toxicity testing. This toxicity testing requires data in the permit. Outfall 8 is a new discharge location due to changes of the plant to accommodate switching from using water to move ash from the plant to a dry ash handling process. This changes comply with the regulations. But when you do something like that, you change the site pretty heavily, and that means waste streams are different. We lost quite a bit of wastewater by doing this change, and the remaining waste streams had to go someplace else and be directed someplace else on the site. And this happens pretty frequently. We do amendments pretty frequently. Whenever we renew or change facility, we do have to amend the permit to, once we have actual effluent data to work with to ensure that amendments are correct. So that's proposed amendment in a nutshell. I like to be very clear what it does not do. Landfill leachate is not discharged via this NPDES permit, nor are we proposing to do so. It was mistakenly included in a supporting document that was posted on the web with the current amendment. At renewal last year, IPL asked DNR to remove leachate coverage from the power plant, their NPDES permit, due to new federal effluent guidelines that were published during the public notice period for their renewal. IPL will initiate
Ottumwa.
publish
You should know.
IPL
owns the Ottumwa
everything that's going to happen. Those new rules hit during public notice, and they said, you know what, we have other options. We don't need this big leachate out of the discharge permit for Ottumwa generating station. So the current permit does not allow for leachate discharge, and the amendment also does not propose to include landfill leachate.
They keep yours, right, Mike?
That's got quite a few comments.
If you guys want to have any
Public
commentary
comments will not really germane to the limit calculations.
to
They
explain
have been about the leach debate, and there were comments that they focused on that. And to kind of give you background locally of what happens with leachate and what it is, several power plants have sent coal combustion residue, what we call CCR waste, to Ottumwa Midland landfill, separate site from the power plant. Leachate, and someone else later will do a much better job of this, but I'm going to describe it very briefly. Leachate is generated at Ottumwa Midland landfill when rain falls on top of the landfill, and that rainfall then kind of filters through or breaks through the landfill complex. So that's what leachate is. And currently the leachate at this landfill, it's either used in the air emissions control system, what we call air scrubbers, at the Ottumwa generating station, and thereby evaporated, so that it's covered under an air permit. And if it's not evaporated, it's sent to the city of Ottumwa's wastewater treatment plant.
You don't need to.
Discharged via the city's NPDES permit. So Ottumwa is called a pre-treatment city. And this designation allows Ottumwa to issue their own permits to anyone that contributes wastewater to them. They can control the flow, they can control the amount of pollutants, they can say yes or no to taking the waste. They have a fair amount of authority here. The DNR did work recently with the city of Ottumwa to revise the Ottumwa Midland landfill leachate permit for the city to comply with the federal effluent guidelines. These federal effluent guidelines for steam electric power plants have been changing, I'd say, every administration for at least the last 15 years, possibly more than that. It's been a political football. Every time the administration touches these requirements for power plants, they get longer, they get more complicated, they have hidden, maybe in the most obvious place, requirements, things like that. So it is no small effort to keep up with these and to make sure our permits are current. One of the requirements to current federal effluent guidelines is that leachate can currently go to cities in their wastewater treatment plant and discharge point, but that has to cease by 2027. And it's our understanding that IPL is aware of the deadlines in the current guidelines. So the other public comment, the other comments we received had to do with under drain water. And under drain water, again, it'll be explained a little better by someone else in in a few minutes. But under drain water, you have a landfill, you have a liner, and then you have groundwater. And Iowa law says, if it's like a landfill, you need to maintain an airspace between the bottom of the landfill liner and the groundwater. And in order to maintain that airspace, you have to pump like the groundwater. And that's under drain water in a nutshell. I poorly described what you described there. That's. So laws were changed a number of years ago to eliminate nearly all groundwater discharges from Iowa's stormwater program. Our general stormwater permits used to cover quite a bit of groundwater within them. And the stormwater program decided they'd like to pass that on to someone else. So they did not want to cover groundwater. What they did is they created a definition and a term and associated definition. That term is called uncontaminated groundwater. And the definition was kind of so strict that purposely eliminated most all groundwater from our stormwater coverage. The term is probably poorly chosen. It's something that we'll have to work with when we issue this general stormwater permits, because I can understand now after talking to different people and seeing the comments there, the confusion that are by when you say, well, the groundwater doesn't meet the definition of uncontaminated groundwater, and thus it must be contaminated, and somebody must have polluted it. Not true. Not true. I want to make that very clear. Just because groundwater doesn't meet the definition of uncontaminated groundwater doesn't mean it's anything but groundwater. Because that's really what they were trying to do, is just eliminating groundwater from the program area. Untouched natural groundwater, most of it in Iowa is not going to meet the definition of uncontaminated groundwater. So it's a bit of the term confusion, and understandable, and something that we will definitely need to work on in the future. IPL needs a different permit, since they can't get stormwater coverage from their groundwater. They need a different permit method for that under drain. And they are working to address that. They're working with construction permitting right now. They'll eventually end up in my shop pretty shortly, I think, to address the under drain discharge. The different, probably what they're doing. Yes, sir. With that, you can tell very quickly I'm getting from wastewater into landfill area. And I'm no landfill expert, so I did a phone a friend, met the Americans, and Brian Braff is my environmental engineer senior with the solid waste contaminated site section of DNR. And he's going to help me out today. He's going to provide background on groundwater under drains, leachates, how DNR regulates Iowa's landfills, including the
we try to build above that for a landfill, this example, and so that layer E is a compacted clay liner. So it's very tight soil that is it's compacted in there, and then above that, that black layer C is one that more recently federal regulation would come in and really try to require a plastic liner on that, but historically a lot of landfills in Iowa were clay only. Obviously landfill is waste, so it's liquid precipitation falls on the landfill percolates. Have a certain what we call permeability or hydraulic, kind of few technical terms that are used interchangeably, but basically it's how fast or how slow it is these water to separate the groundwater from that waste from the liner system. Yeah, and so the way that's done, unlike the previous slide where we showed the groundwater naturally just below this whole system, to actually just above it and so we're going to ignore this because it really is not showing what and how modern landfills are being operated. go on to the next slide, I have talked about the layers of a landfill. And we build it from the bottom up. So we're going to start out there with that letter A is
Left. I'm sorry. So go to the bottom right-hand part of your screen, and you'll see you'll see a chat with everyone. If you hover over it, it's got 3 buttons, and from the far right side of your screen down it looks like a call-out symbol. You see in cartoons and stuff. That's the symbol for that. So if you open that, you click that button, you'll get a field that you can type into. And they just write please indicate your name and your affiliation and that you would like to speak. If you're at a centralized meeting on location, please provide your name to one person there and have that person enter your name and affiliation into the chat. And once we have those people speak, we're on the video portion that have the chat button. I'll also invite folks that are on the phone only if they wish to speak. So we'll go with the folks on the video call first, and then I will ask for the folks that are on the phone. I'll call each person one at a time, and you'll each have 3 minutes to speak. I've got someone else who will at least put up a timer for you so you know when you're running down on time. And once again, we are recording. And when you start your comment, please state your name and affiliation. And let me to one more slide here. So you know what's coming after this. Next steps. There will be a response to comments document. We call it a responsiveness summary. We'll create one of those that will summarize the comments we received and the first responses to each of those comments. The final permanent amendments and responsiveness summary will be posted online on a site we call WWPIE. And you can, if you're on your phone and you can't see the screen, you can just type WWPIE, WWPIE, says PIE, one word, into the search box at DNR's website, and just select the first site that appears, and then you'll have it. And then you'll just search for the facility. You can search by city or county or the facility name or portion of the facility name, and that will bring up IPO generating station and all the associated documents with it. And that's where these documents will live. Okay. Stop the survey. Chat. So, Michael Schmidt, you are up. To unmute. Yeah. You can unmute yourself at this point, and that's the button on the bottom of your screen. It's a hard left, the microphone.
Hi, I'm Terry Shaw, and I'm retired, and what I'm really concerned about is the level of the radioactives. You never even mentioned those. And I used to work in a field at Vanderbilt University with radioactives. The levels of lithium and cobalt are way above what the National Regulatory Commission would allow us to work with, way above. If we had these levels in the lab I worked in, we would not be working for 3 to 6 months. And that is my main concern. But you have the molybdenum, your lithium, your cobalt, manganese. These are all radioactive. How are they going to address this? To me, it's a very big concern because I worked in the field for 10 years with nuclear radioactives. And that is my main concern because these are not good levels. And that's all I have to say about it. But like I said, I am very concerned about those levels and groundwater. And from what I see, they would have shut us down in our lab.
Do we just keep going with this round?
Sure. Vote.
Okay, I like to speak.
And
Good morning. My name is Brayden Rashidi, and I work at the Iowa Environmental Council. I appreciate the opportunity to come in on the proposed wastewater permit for our Alliant Interstate Power and Light at the Ottumwa generating station. I'd like to highlight a major concern in this draft permit, which is leachate. As mentioned earlier by the DNR staff, so leachate is the contaminated liquid that breathes out of fuel ash landfills and impoundments and carries toxic pollutants like arsenic, mercury, selenium, and lead into our waterways. These substances are linked to serious health risks, including cancer, heart disease, development disorders, and neurological issues. At Ottumwa, millions of gallons of distilled water are produced and discharged each year, directly threatening the Des Moines River, a source of drinking water and recreation for downstream communities. EPA has already recognized how dangerous leachate is, and that's why in 2024, the agency issued an updated effluent limitation guidelines for ELGs from coal plants. The new rule is clear. Discharges of managed leachate must be eliminated entirely, and unmanaged leachate discharges must meet strict numeric limits for arsenic and mercury. These protections are not optional, and state permits like this one are legally required to incorporate them. The timeline is also clear under the ELG rule. Facilities must move to zero discharge for managed leachate as soon as possible and no later than December 31st, 2029. And for leachate that gets sent to public treatment works, which is what Interstate Power and Light is doing now, pre-treatment standards must be met by May 9th, 2027. In other words, this permit cannot delay action, and communities and surrounding ecosystems deserve protection now. This matters because Ottumwa has a history of pollution. The Ottumwa Midland Landfill and generating station together have discharged leachate with pollutant levels far above safe limits for drinking water. For example, based on Alliant's own water quality monitoring data, arsenic has been detected at more than 10 times the health-based water quality standard. This should raise serious concerns for human health and wildlife. To achieve the Clean Water Act's goal of eliminating industrial water pollution, Iowa DNR must strengthen this permit to require the best available technology to clean up pollution and hold Interstate Power and Light accountable. That means amending the permit to reflect the ELG standards, enforce strict limits on leachate discharges, and set a firm timeline for compliance. We can't allow untreated coal ash waste to keep flowing to the Des Moines River. The health of local communities and ecosystems is on the line, and we urge DNR to revise this permit. Thank you.
All right, I would also like to speak. My name is Michael Schmidt, and I'm General Counsel at the Iowa Environmental Council. Thank you to DNR for holding this public hearing. I don't recall seeing a notice or learning about any hearing like this for an individual permit in my 6 years in the seat. This hearing follows the lengthy process of permitting and compliance efforts, so I want to lay out how we got here from a public perspective. In 2024, DNR issued the draft permit for the Ottumwa coal plant that said that it would allow discharges of the combustion residual leachate, the contaminated water that we heard about earlier and that Raymond just talked about. During the comment period, EPA released the effluent limit guidelines that apply to a Ottumwa generating station to stop discharging leachate as soon as possible and no later than 2029. Alliant needs to implement a different process to stop the leachate discharge. In our public comments, we called on DNR to incorporate those federal requirements into the permit. Instead of a compliance schedule to stop the discharges as soon as possible, DNR deleted the language about leachate from the permit. Nothing from the new federal regulations ended up in the final permit. Instead of discharging it directly, Alliant started trucking the leachate to the city of Ottumwa's water pollution control facility. This facility has an expired Clean Water Act discharge permit without any requirements to leachate, which makes sense because this is ultimately Alliant's issue, not the city's. The city has a pre-treatment agreement with Alliant, as DNR mentioned, meaning that it mixes Alliant's leachate with the city wastewater. That pre-treatment agreement does not have a compliance schedule for Alliant either. The best we can say is that it expires in 2027. DNR reopened the permit this summer for a major modification, which triggered the public comment process. The federal regulations for leachate took effect last year. They clearly apply to waste from Ottumwa that Alliant sends to the Ottumwa Midland landfill, but DNR did not propose to require a compliance schedule or require action as soon as possible, as federal regulations require. It did not incorporate any of the federal regulations in the permit. Instead, DNR only proposed to remove limits from the permit. In sum, the federal regulations require action as soon as possible with hard deadlines, but Alliant has no compliance schedule to meet them. No permit includes those deadlines in the federal regulation. These discharges of heavy metals should be a concern to everyone in the area, and we encourage DNR to impose compliance requirements rather than avoiding the issue. Thank you. We do have a couple more folks who would like to speak in the room here.
Yeah, because
Hi, my name is T. Dorsett, and I'm a nurse practitioner, and I have a wellness clinic. And I wasn't really familiar with this. I honestly didn't know how the water was treated before it gets to us. But what I can tell you is I do test people for toxins and heavy metals. There's really high rates among the people that I test. I went back through my tests over the last 3 years, and every single person I test is high in certain of the heavy metals, including like lead, cadmium, other things. I test for about 21 of them. And I scratched my head and I kind of wondered, like, why? Why is everyone, I mean, there are other heavy metals that they are high in, but why is everyone in the same ones? And they're very high, like some people are in the severe range. So all I can do is report that to you and ask that you would look further than the water before it gets to us only. I mean, that's important, but what are we missing? Like, are we really looking at the people that could impact? Like, what is really coming through that water that's getting to us? I've just always wondered about this, and then when I heard about this meeting, then I came, and I know a lot more now about what happens to the water before I drink it. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
let's take.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nancy Thompson. I'm just a private citizen here in town. Live south of town. I'm very concerned about the pollution of our waterways, the high cancer rates in Iowa, and especially the southern Iowa is horrible. We already deal with enough pollution from the farms and the pesticides and all that. And it just seems to me that we're just really getting tired of corporations not being held accountable and using little whatever ways to have someone else take the lead on protecting our health. Anything that's going to be even close to the coal leachate, it seems pretty clear to me. I'm a layperson, obviously, but that should be handled by Alliant. I mean, that should not be. The citizens should not have to pay for that while they make money, and that's just accountability. And I guess that's my statement. Thank you.
Sure. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Heidi Sun. I represent a national organization here in Iowa called Moms Clean Air Force, and I'm the Ecomadres coordinator, which is also a national branch, and we focus on Latino health issues. We work on air quality issues primarily, but those are interrelated with water quality issues. I came here not with a prepared statement because I wanted to listen and I wanted to react to what was said. I'm a trained scientist. I have an advanced degree in sciences, so I understand the techno lingo, but I'm also a mom, and I want to bring this down to reality here. I think what is being done to control leachate, what goes into our groundwater is important, and it's improved over the decades. But it's still not enough. The problem with coal leaches is that it comes from coal burning. The two things cannot be separated. And both the burning and the amount of, you can argue that coal naturally contains arsenic, mercury, and all these other heavy metals. That's true. They are naturally contained in there, and so they are naturally found in our groundwater, also in the bedrock, as was explained. But what really matters here, the amount of coal we burn and the amount of leachate we produce is what becomes the problem. And we're not doing enough to protect unborn children. I'm just going to take the example of mercury. Mercury, you can measure it coming out of the smokestacks, and you can measure it where it comes out of the leachate. But mercury concentrates in fatty tissue. So this enters the river, it concentrates in fatty tissue of fish. Those fish get eaten by bigger fish. That concentrates even more through the bacterial action that converts mercury to methylmercury. There is no safe level of methylmercury for humans. None. So we can measure all we want, but as this stuff concentrates in the fatty tissue, it enters the streams where people fish. And if you're a pregnant person and you're expecting a child, that concentrated methylmercury enters the brain tissue of the child. And that child is born with a disadvantage neurologically and cognitively. That's just one example. So as we talk about these abstract regulations and we talk our way in circles around the science of it, let's not forget what this is about. It's about the health of humans, and that starts before they're born, and the right of humans for the most healthy way of life. Coal is outdated, it's expensive, it needs to be gotten rid of. Let's not talk about how we manage leachate. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Sleep on.
I think that is everyone from the room in the complex here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Joshua Smith, you're next up. Unmute. Hey.
So it's Joshua Smith on behalf of Sierra. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Like to reiterate my thanks for allowing this public hearing to be informative, and we appreciate it. I work on behalf of Sierra Club. I have 3 points that I'd like to discuss briefly. First, Alliant and DNR are here to take the position that this particular permit somehow narrowly applies to the power plant itself. And it also applied to alcohol number 8, addressing borons and temperature. As an initial matter, EPA's regulations that CFR 122.62A3 provide that the director or DNR in this case has caused the existing implementation guidelines in response to EPA's amendment of those guidelines on the national level. And as mentioned, EPA did just that in 2024. Moreover, EPA's rule that 2024 makes clear the DNR has an obligation to address those revised implementation guidelines as soon as possible after the effective date of the ELG revision, so no later than 2029 for direct discharges. Now, DNR has acknowledged their presentation that the power plant may have direct discharge leachate longer, but they collect leachate and transport it to the city of Ottumwa and USPO through the system. The rule contains a special provision for such indirect discharges requiring them to comply by 2027 at the latest. The fact that Alliant is aware of that deadline does not insulate Alliant or DNR from requiring compliance explicitly in the permit. Just a matter of fairness that DNR and Alliant cannot shift those costs, both environmental, health, and economic, to the city of Ottumwa. An ELG rule recognizes that. I'd like to also note that the ELG rule makes clear that even though the landfill is not directly adjacent to the power plant, DNR has an obligation to address discharge leachate from the landfill. The rule makes clear that the non-adjoining facilities that those in the particular case have an obligation permitted under the implementation guideline rule, so long as they have the same operational control of the generator of the chip. Alliance analyses submitted to DNR under its anti-degradation obligations make clear that both the landfill and power plant are under Alliance control. In fact, the landfills do not operate but for power, and therefore the agency has an obligation to address those discharges in this permit.
Thank you. Josh Mettelbaum?
Hello. I'm in charge with the Environmental Law and Policy Center in our Des Moines, Iowa office. I want to reiterate our appreciation to DNR for holding this hearing and having this conversation. The Environmental Law and Policy Center was one of the joint commenters with the Iowa Environmental Council and Sierra Club when we provided initial comments and requested this hearing with our July 2nd comments. My comments overlap some with others. As noted previously, EPA has updated the effluent limitation guidelines for coal plants, and they did so in 2024, over a year ago now. And these new rules are the law of the land. These are the baseline for what DNR needs to comply with, what Alliant needs to comply with. And so these rules require incorporation into a NIPTES permit as soon as possible. That's what others have mentioned. This amendment of the permit presents that as soon as possible opportunity to incorporate these requirements, the rule requirements into the permit, or at a minimum, a compliance. And the failure to address the ELG rules and the leachate in the permit amendments means that this permit is not compliant with federal requirements. And they're certainly not doing this as soon as possible because we're making a major amendment. As others have noted, the way that Alliant is trying to address this issue right now is by transporting waste, and you can't avoid compliance by shipping it to Ottumwa. Again, that just shifts the risk. It shifts the risk to the city and to its residents. This is Alliance pollution, and this permit is the opportunity to provide accountability and compliance with the rule. It should do so. Finally, the other key piece I wanted to focus on is this permit fails to meet the transparency requirements of the ELG. The public deserves to know what's in our water and what is being done to address this pollution. And the ELG rule, in addition to setting discharge limits, has a requirement for reporting about ELG compliance that's codified in the law. And that reporting compliance should be done when this permit is being amended. It is not being done. There is no reason that Alliant cannot share this information at a public reporting website. That provides basic transparency to let us know what is in our water, what is being done to comply. DNR should step in and provide that accountability and require the transparency requirements we follow here. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry Langen, you can go ahead and unmute. They're just on the phone. Anyone wishing to speak, go ahead and state your name and affiliation. And you have 3 minutes to speak. Anyone wanting to talk who's on the phone?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep. Don't think there's anything they don't. What? Come on. There's a peanut done stuff. Then I'm heel sugar.
Okay, Terry or anyone else I may have missed. Anyone wish to speak on the record?
Can I ask you a follow-up question?
Can a reporter ask a question? We have one here,
Oh, Ms. Schwartz with KTVO.
We're only taking comments on the record, so they can ask a question on the record and we'll respond to it when we issue the final amendment and develop the response to the summary. So if they have a question that they need answered for an article today, they should contact me directly.
Sure. That's all. Wait, can I make a comment?
we do have one other person to do the comment here.
Okay?
Hello. Thank you again for holding this hearing today. My name is Emma Coleman. I'm a resident of Des Moines, and I'm down in Ottumwa today to help support the community come out and make these comments. I can't, so am I not on camera?
You are on camera, and yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. We can't see me. So I just want to say that we went out in the community and talked about this issue with people last week, and there was just a lot of grave concern about this, and we had a room of 10 people here, and it is kind of an intimidating process. So I just want to name that people are concerned and coming out for this and don't necessarily know what to say or how to communicate it, but there is a lot of concern in the community. I'm concerned as a resident of Iowa about our waterways and this pollution and the multi-million-dollar companies that need to be held accountable and clean up their mess. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was able to unmute Wendy.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Good deal. Go ahead and state your comment.
My name is Terry Lyman. I'm subsidiary about Walters in southwest Iowa. I have extensive background in the power sector, professional capacity. I've worked in many of these different facilities around the Midwest. Just like to reiterate the comments. So what the council has made, remaining these facilities, well, it's time that state entity as DNR, and I appreciate the ability to make a comment today if you drive this hearing, hold the public trust and stop allowing these industries to export their externalities to go downstream, essentially, to the next person down the road, who then our tax dollars then have to pay for. Then we have the technologies for these facilities to still water and clean this water that they're asking to be able to use. And we should require them to do that before it gets pumped out for the next person down. Please keep in mind, keep us in mind, and repent the citizens of the state. I have to see before I retire, thinking for everyone being
Anyone else wish to comment? Go ahead, Patrick. You want to speak, Patrick? You have options.
That's fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure can.
I do want to thank everyone else's comment. or the DNR to update this permit to reflect more recently enacted regulations from the EPA and urge the DNR to take those steps. Please, let's avoid litigation here. I mean, that's litigation will happen if you know. Expect the offer from the DNR, and let's not go there. Just update those things properly so that it does the job it's supposed to. I'm going to make a comment that is somewhat outside the scope of this conversation, but I'm just going to make it anyway. I would like to ask the DNR, once they've done their work, I'm going to optimistically assume that it will be the permit that everyone here has asked for. The question will come up, okay, who's going to pay for this? Typically, the expenses associated with doing this are passed on to ratepayers. I am going to ask the DNR to recommend if there's any way they can do that. For example, the Iowa Utilities Commission, that utility not be allowed to do that. This is a for-profit, shareholder-driven organization. They'll externalize costs any and every way they can to build shareholder value, leaving us and taxpayers and ratepayers on the hook. I would like to see the appropriate regulatory bodies insist that this expensive resulting from this not be passed on to ratepayers, that they be paid by the company and its shareholders at the part of the conversation. Don't let them off the hook this time. Other than that, for heaven's sakes, let's keep our water clean. We can do better than this. Court Justice Coalition Report 121, how to clean up all that properly. Scientifically, technically, no excuse for anything less than what has been asked for here today. That is my comment. Thank you.
Patrick, can you state your full name and affiliation for the record?
My name is Patrick Bosil. I'm a citizen of the realm. I'm a member of the Iowa Sierra Club and a number of other conservation organizations. I've done water quality testing off and on over the years in the state, right down to boots on the ground and in the water. And I want to see this done properly.
Thank you, Patrick.
No,
Should we have some more?
Anyone else on the phone or a video call wish to speak? Anyone else wish to comment? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
yes, he's like screen on it's just like house. It was a bit steep. Like
To the Patrick's over he's on your body. So is in the living room. Yeah. Is that what he said?
Here. In fair quote. I lead you down. Well, eat.
Right? We're just going to wait for everybody to come and determine.
We have no one else. Then this concludes the